Welcome back to the Word on Fire Show. I'm Matthew Petrusik, Senior Director of the Word on Fire Institute and the host of the Word on Fire Show. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Today we're bringing you the second half of an hour-long conversation between Dr. Tod Worner and Bishop Robert Barron on the transcendental of beauty. Dr. Tod is the editor-in-chief of Evangelization and Culture, our journal at the Word on Fire Institute. He also hosts the Evangelization and Culture podcast. Here to discuss beauty with Dr. Tod Worner is Bishop Robert Barron.
Segment 2, the deformation of beauty. French Catholic novelist Georges Bernanot cautioned, quote, "Because you have not lived your faith is no longer alive. It has become abstract. It is, as it were, disincarnate. Perhaps we will discover in this disincarnation of the word the true cause of our misfortunes," close quote. So Bishop Barron, the disincarnation of the word, I just love that notion of the disincarnation of the word. It's just frightening to me. That invariably leads to the deformation of the true, the good, and the beautiful. So what is it about postmodernity that attempts to take the ugly in art or fashion and deem it beautiful? It's not seeing the beautiful in the profane, but it seems like it's deliberately attempting to debase or profanize, if you will, the beautiful. Is this a devilish plot of deformation?
You don't ask superficial questions, do you? But that's a really searching question. Because in the postmodern, think of the kind of brutalist architecture. To me, is the best example of that. I'll tell you, just a couple days ago, as we record this, I was in Washington, and I was staying in a hotel in the L'Enfant Plaza area, which I had never really stayed in before. It's just off the mall a little bit, but it's in this awful concrete jungle. Jungle is too high praise. It's like in a concrete prison.
Yeah.
All the buildings are the worst kind of brutalist.
Bunker-esque almost.
Right. Right. Like you're in a highway overpass or you're in a prison yard. And devoid of decoration, like on purpose. We're going to make it as kind of brutally simple and unrelievedly drab as possible. So the question, which is a searching one, is where did that come from? I mean, I get, in the history of art, there's always action and reaction.
Right.
It always happens. So let's say when the Baroque becomes the Rococo and we get this wildly over-the-top, hyper-decorated sort of form, of course you're going to get a reaction against that. The move toward the simple and the clear and, think of Frank Lloyd Wright, architecture, imitating the plains of the Midwest and all that. I get that. I get that. But your question is getting at a deeper point. Was there almost like an animus against the beautiful? We want to de-beautify.
Right.
We want to uglify the architecture. Now, how do you do it? Well, one thing is you get rid of symmetry and take the three things. You get rid of integritas, you get rid of consonantia and claritas. I don't want to get too deeply in trouble by naming particular buildings, but
Sure.
One I can think of that. See, I love contemplating buildings. One of my favorite things to look at is a beautiful building, right? But some buildings you look at and they're depressing because they don't have those qualities. They're brutal, literally.
Right.
They brutalize the viewer.
Yeah.
They disharmonize what's in you because the psychological value of the beautiful is that it brings you into greater harmony, right?
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Why do we feel better in certain buildings?
Yeah.
Why do we, as we approach them, as we enter them, and why do some buildings make us very uneasy? They make us feel less alive. They make us feel anxious. Well, there's a reason for that. It's their lack of those beautiful elements. So is there something perverse that happened that got into our consciousness culturally and led to this kind of de-beautification? I've talked about, in the years I was coming of age, the dumbing down of the faith, the truth being, but also the uglification of the faith. The churches built in my time, they were the opposite of Notre Dame.
Right.
They were the opposite of St. Peter's. They were the opposite of Sainte-Chapelle. It's like there was an attempt to de-beautify, to de-decorate. the churches. I don't know, that'd be talk for another seminar, for us to go into like, was there almost a perversity of spirit?
It's interesting. Recently, last summer actually, I was down at Notre Dame Notre Dame. Sorry, Notre Dame in South Bend. South Bend.
We got to use our Midwest.
Notre Dame. and listening to because of a child of mine, listening to the architectural program they're talking about, and they were so much about the notion that basically designing something purely for function, designing something with disregard, if not a fashionable disregard for the aesthetically pleasing, it is dead and gone as soon as the paint dries, as soon as the concrete hardens, and so on. And it's also something. It's to some extent it's deadening to the soul, like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So as you said, we all know when you travel to Europe, you go to these incredible churches, hopefully attending mass there, but you're also walking through them, and these cathedrals, they lift you to a soaring new level that a modern bunker style, function over form type of does not do anything.
I'll give you one example. So for many years, I was at Mundelein Seminary, right outside Chicago, and I became rector there eventually. But the house chapel in the students' house was uglified in the 1970s and was turned into this very bland, beige, unremarkable place. And that's when I came there to the seminary. That's what I knew. And then most of my years as a professor, it was like that. I always hated it. And here's the thing. No one would ever have dreamed in any of those years when you brought someone to that building, let me show you the chapel.
Yeah.
I mean, never once. It would never have occurred to anyone ever to do that. Now, we would have said, it's the worship space and, it's where the assembly gathers.
Right.
No one would ever have brought anyone there to say, let me. Well, when I was rector, and I'm in charge. So there's something I could do. And make a long story short, we raised the money and all that, and we redid it as the John Paul II Chapel. And I'm excessively proud of it, We turned it into a really beautiful space, 19 stained glass windows with the saints and blesseds of John Paul, this gorgeous portrait of John Paul II, Our Lady of Guadalupe, the sanctuary redone, beautiful statues of the Joseph and Mary. Well, the minute it was done, everybody wanted to bring guests. They wanted to bring their family. They wanted to when can we get a tour of it? We want to bring. Well, of course. Yeah. That's what the beautiful does. Yes. It's alluring, It's as though we wanted to jettison that in favor of what? I don't know. You could play a Protestant Catholic game to some degree, where the Protestants were wary of beauty. I mean, Luther was. The fear that it'll be a distraction, idolatry, it'll take our attention away from God. And so the churches were kind of emptied out. Well, we imitated that, in my judgment, foolishly.
Right.
We imitated, I love a lot of elements of Protestantism. That's one I don't love, and we imitated that. No, beauty is a route of access to God.
Reflecting on the Holocaust, shifting gears a little bit, George Steiner famously observed, quote, "We now know that a man can read Goethe or Rilke in the evening, that he can play Bach and Schubert and go to his day's work at Auschwitz in the morning," close quote.
Yeah, wow.
So my question, kind of reflecting upon that, again, dark and kind of menacing quote with great truth to it, does beauty civilize? And if so, what are we to do with the conundrum of a Himmler or a Heydrich, very well educated in music and literature and so on, that blithely run concentration camps that murder millions? So first to the question of the civilizing influence of beauty, and then what went wrong in these circumstances where these people were raised and they were nursed on the beautiful, the liberal arts, the music and so on, and they went so horribly in the wrong direction?
Again, you don't ask superficial questions. Because, the instinct you have is absolutely right. Because the transcendentals are all grounded in being, they should be mutually implicative. Mm-hmm. The true should lead you to the good, which should lead you to the beautiful, or the beautiful to the good and to the true. That's the Charles Ryder.
Yeah.
Go from beautiful to good to true. That's Balthasar, by the way he puts his trilogy together is from the beautiful to the good to the true. They should do that. There should be a kind of circumcessio of the three elements, But we live in a fallen world, right? And our minds and wills are fallen, and that's a sign of it. And that's a particularly telling sign, isn't it? That you could listen to Mozart in the morning and then butcher people in the afternoon. It should not be that way. That's a sign of the disintegration of the self. Newman knew that in the 19th century. He urged people to cultivate the arts because it improves you morally, at least it should. That refinement in your aesthetic consciousness should lead to a refinement in your moral activity. And I think at best it does. People that spend a lot of time in beautiful churches should become better people. I think that makes sense. And they should be led to the true, more directly. But I think that's a sign of the fall, when those things get separated out.
Segment 3, beauty in the Catholic faith. Reflecting on an intellectual and theological hero, Hans Urs von Balthasar, Bishop Robert Barron tells us, quote, Balthasar says anything beautiful first arrests you. You're stopped in your tracks by it. Then Balthasar says the beautiful elects you. You've been chosen. And finally, he says the beautiful always sends you. You're sent on a mission, close quote. So Bishop, we've alluded to this, and especially the direction of beauty to goodness to truth. But you've described beauty as the arrowhead of evangelization and that we should lead with beauty. Can you just explain about just how that's informed your ministry?
Yeah, I want to start though with that quote you have there, because I learned that from Balthasar. We talk about aesthetic arrest. That's that moment when you're stopped in your tracks. My favorite pop song is Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan. And I remember when I read Patti Smith's account. It's one of her favorite songs. And she said she was driving her car. It's like when it came out in 1965. And the song's on the radio. And she heard it. And she said she had to stop the car, pull over. And she got out and sat on the curb. And just had to take it in.
Wow.
Because it was so rearranging her consciousness. That's aesthetic arrest in the literal sense. She had to stop. And my memory, I remember hearing it in my dorm room at Notre Dame when I was a freshman in college. But I had a similar experience. I'm like, I've never heard a song like that before. I've never heard anything like that in terms of popular music. And wait a minute, what did he just say there? And pop songs are "I love you" and "You love me" and "The moon is blue," and then Bob Dylan, who's like T.S. Eliot, and like where is that coming from? That's aesthetic arrest. Or it's James Joyce, stopped in his tracks by the girl out in the street. And look at her, And see, the arrest has a lot to do with that suspension of ordinary consciousness, of the categorical world, and the tech world, and boom, something stops you and forces you to look really at a higher level. It might lead you to the Frage nach dem Sein if you let it, right? But you got to be stopped, first of all. And it's very importantly in spiritual direction. If you're working with someone spiritually, you have to stop them at a certain point. You have to kind of grab them. Wait a minute, stop. You need to listen and look. Or it's the Buddhist thing of the monkey mind. You got to calm the monkey mind. You have to stop. Now, what's going to stop you? Well, it's something beautiful, Look. And then it elects you. I love that because that's my experience too, that when you're really in the grip of the beautiful, what do you want to do? You've been chosen by it. It's like, who am I that I should experience such a thing? That's the way you feel. I've told this story before, but I barely understood what I was reading. But when I was a ninth grader and Romeo and Juliet, we were reading in class, and they assigned, and we had to read the words. And I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
But I had that feeling, that such a thing should exist.
Yeah.
I never imagined that there could be such a thing as this, language like this. And who am I that I get to hear this, right? The first time I saw the great Gothic churches, I had studied them and seen pictures of them. But when I saw them, who am I? I'm standing in front of Chartres Cathedral. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Who am I? That's the being elected.
Yep.
You've been chosen. I've often used that image from movies, The Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is a great movie in so many ways. But to me, it's all about religion. It's all about the spiritual life, the alien, right, ships that choose certain people. They mark them, and then they have to come into deeper communion.
Right.
That's what it feels like when the beautiful elects you, right? But then the third step, it sends you. You're a missionary now. Yeah. And like Bob Dylan, since I was 14, I've been a missionary for Bob Dylan. No question about it. I talk about Bob Dylan all the time. I tell people, have you heard? Do you know about this song? Do you hear this song? It's amazing. What? You don't like Bob Dylan? What are you talking about? Have you ever heard this song? You become, or you see a movie. Did you see that movie? Yeah. That was so good. You become a missionary for it, right? You've been sent. Well, there's the gospel.
Yeah.
Is look at Jesus. Now, time and time again, people are arrested. They're stopped in their tracks by him. They're elected. It's the thing, he chooses the disciples, right? They elect him. They're elected. And then, now go. You're sent on a mission. Go tell the world. And here we are 2 millennia later, and here we are still. Have you heard about Jesus? Have you heard about who he is? Have you heard about Jesus Christ? Let me tell you about him. That's all Word on Fire is about that. It's being sent on mission. So that's how the beautiful finds its way into evangelization.
Yeah, it's wonderful. By the way, there's a story. William Osler is one of the iconic doctors who put Johns Hopkins on the map. He's the godfather of internal medicine. And he was such an enthusiastic teacher that when he was doing an autopsy or what have you, he'd come across a berry aneurysm, a little aneurysm in the corner of one of the intricate arteries of the brain that was associated with the polycystic kidneys. And there's people often know that if you have somebody who has polycystic kidney disease, you have to be concerned about berry aneurysms in the brain. And when he identified this during the autopsy, he yelled out as loud as he could, "Hoity-toity, boys, look at this!" And they all skittered over there. and there was a respect, obviously, for the dead, but it was also, this is the wonder of certain patterns in creation. And I want to share this with you, because like you said, when you're enthusiastic about something, it's William F. Buckley said this. He goes, it's almost a crime not to share that love you have for this.
Right.
You know?
No, Buckley's a good example because Buckley had so many enthusiasms.
Yes.
And he was always talking about them and not in an obnoxious, aggressive way. It was like, hey, this thing, sailing or it's a harpsichord playing or whatever he did. And he did it with a great kind of joyful enthusiasm.
The German poet Rainer Maria Rilke once noted, quote, "For beauty is nothing but the beginning of terror, which we are barely able to endure, and it amazes us so, because it serenely disdains to destroy us. Every angel is terrible," close quote. Now this seems kind of dark, and it seems to go...
I totally get it.
And he said, and so in the Catholicism series, you noted how the disciples, upon witnessing Christ and his wisdom and power, were amazed and afraid. And of course, upon first encountering human beings, angels consistently reassure, "Do not be afraid."
Right.
Is there something fearsome, awesome in its original definition in the truly beautiful?
Yes, because it shakes you out of yourself. And go right back to Pieper, it shakes you out of the workaday consciousness and puts you in the presence, ultimately, of the source of existence. And that's terrible. And the angels, the seraphim, they're on fire because they're so close to the divine presence. When they break into your life, into your world, of course it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And so we domesticate angels as little, putti, these little babies with the wings.
Cherubs.
No. The angels are overwhelming. But see, then the true art participates in that, it seems to me, that there is something terrifying about great art. Because it wrenches you out of your ordinary consciousness into a higher world. So even something that the subject matter of it might be very kind of gentle, but if it's real art, it is terrifying. It's awesome. That's where, Kant got that part of it right, that the sublime has that quality of overwhelming. Yeah. Like when you're at the mountain range. Or I remember when I stood for the first time at the foot of the Cologne Cathedral, which is the biggest, the grandest of them all. It is like a great mountain. It's this great spiritual mountain. It's more than a little terrifying. I totally get that. I think truly great art has that disconcerting, ripping you out of your ordinary consciousness quality to it. We always want to control things, so it comes under my aegis. and it fits into my subjective consciousness. But the truly beautiful breaks into and rearranges my consciousness. I become a different person because of it. I don't control it, it starts controlling me. And that's frightening.
Well, there's a little bit of the Brave New World soma kind of notion that to the way we're living our lives nowadays, where we're all kind of sort of, as we talked about, we're sort of lulled into this torpor of the comfortable technology and so on. And so it's interesting that whether it's a Flannery O'Connor misfit just shooting this grandmother,
right,
or it's the awesomeness of a Cologne cathedral, either way, and obviously the Flannery side is meant to shows an explosion of suffering in the midst of, and grace in the midst of it and so on. But the bottom line is it strikes me that there has to be, God reaches into people's lives with that shock factor.
Right. And especially, see, we're in a fallen world, so you have to redouble it. Because if we had never fallen, we'd still find God rather terrifying.
Yeah.
But now that we've fallen, he's even more so. That's why, what's the heart of Christianity is this awful, awful image of the cross. And we're so used to it, and it's been so domesticated, but we are the weirdest religion of them all. And nothing else is even close, it seems to me. When you say at the heart of your religion is this 30-year-old man in complete failure and utter suffering, dying on an instrument of torture, and that we hold that up. I'm wearing, you know, there's no religion weirder than ours.
Yeah.
And that we say, well, this is God, you know. Well, that is pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
And the cross is terrifying to all of us sinners. And I don't mean terrifying in some, you know, Stephen King way. I mean, it's terrifying in that it shakes and turns and breaks through and rearranges, all of that.
Yeah.
That Balthazar can say, look at that cross. And actually, this is a good example because look what we've done. It's not a bad thing. We beautified it, say, by putting gold on it and so on and decorating it. But that's okay because we're saying, yes, that awful cross outside of Jerusalem on that terrible place, the skull place, and this man dying this horrible death. But that is where God made his salvation known to us.
Right.
That's a strange and wonderful religion.
If beauty points to the good, and the good opens us to truth, which in turn brings us to God, is there a concern that people could get stuck on beauty and have a religion of aesthetics instead of a religion of the redeeming Christ?
Yeah, but it could happen with the other ones too, right? You could get stuck on the true, and you could become a rationalist, right? You get stuck on the good and become a moralist in a sort of overbearing way. So you could get stuck at any of those levels. That's true, and it's right. The interface among them is the way it works. You're supposed to. They should all work in a kind of iconic manner where you go through them to the source, right? Where the truth of that glass, whether it's studied by a chemist or a physicist, should lead to the source of all intelligibility. Where the beauty of a good act, when you say the simplest act of kindness, but if you trace it all the way, it leads you to the source of goodness.
Right.
And the girl standing off the beach in Dublin that James Joyce saw, oh, heavenly God. That's the way it's supposed to work, right? But yeah, you can get stuck. And that's called idolatry. The Bible knows all about that. It's when a lesser good becomes the supreme good, and then you got trouble. Yeah. And so part of our moral education is precisely along those lines. Don't get stuck, right? Don't get stuck with wealth, pleasure, power, honor. Don't get stuck with truth, goodness, and beauty at lower levels. Allow them to carry you all the way to the source.
Right.
But that's called idolatry, and it's the primary problem in the Bible. Before you get to any particular sins, that's always the problem, is idolatry.
In the dark days of the Holocaust, the young Anne Frank confided in her diary, quote, "I don't think of all the misery, but of the beauty that remains," close quote. How might we craft our lens to see and be inspired by beauty in the face of the trials of a troubled world?
Same way the world didn't deserve Anne Frank. It's amazing. How old was she? Like 12 or something, you know? But see, what she's exhibiting there is a very deep and powerful intuition. Where sin abounds, grace abounds the more, and that has to be true. It's a metaphysical principle, because the evil is a privatio boni. It's a privation of the good. Ugliness does not have a substance. Ugliness is a privation of beauty that ought to be there. Falsity is a emptiness. It's a non-being. It's the lack of truth that ought to be there. See, so even in the wicked world that she was living in, the world of Nazi domination, she had that intuition to say, but what's beautiful is always greater. It has to be. Because wickedness can exist only parasitically. It exists only as a deformation of the good. So the good is always greater. That's not Pollyannish. That's not naivete. That's good, solid metaphysics. But it should translate into good spirituality as well. So whenever we're tempted to say, oh, the world is just a wreck, it's just a mess, look, it's nothing but sin. No. Tout est grâce. There's Bernanos. Tout est grâce. Everything's grace. What we call wickedness and falsity, they're real, but not in the full metaphysical sense. They're privations of the good, privations of the true. They're like cavities in a tooth. The tooth remains good, right? But it's got a cavity in it. So we have to address it, but that's a deep intuition she's exhibiting there, that the beautiful is more enduring.
Isn't it striking, though, just when you're talking about getting stuck on the true, the good, the beautiful, and not going all the way to God, you realize, from a devilish standpoint, how many defective alternatives we are consistently presented with daily that would keep us from getting to God.
Well, look, there are like sort of obvious bad choices, but look how the Bible is just so relentless. If we were to say, now what's a value in the world? Well, the family, of course. Who's against the family? Everyone loved the family is so important. But look at the Bible, how relentless it is. Abraham, here I am, Lord. Isaac, your son, the son of the promise of your old age? Yeah. Isaac, whom you love? Yeah, I know him. I want you to sacrifice him to me. Well, and we say, oh, how awful and all this. It's the Bible in its typically, I'd say, Jewish way. Yes, we love the family. Yes, our kids are great importance to us. But they can't be of ultimate importance to us. Yeah. Even our kids. Lord, I'll follow you, but first let me bury my father. Let the dead bury their dead. Your father and your family, they're of supreme importance. No, not supreme. They're of great importance, but they're not of supreme importance. Yeah. The Bible is relentless in it's not just laying out doctrinal truth. It does that, but it's like a Wittgenstein move. It invites us into spiritual exercises, I think. So like the Abraham story or the let the dead bury their dead, it's inviting us to move into that space. It's like, okay, could I do that? Could I say that? If God really said to you, sacrifice to me one of your daughters. Yeah, but see,
I know,
you're meant to move into that space to say, what, now, let's use that controversial term. What's the order amoris in my life? What's the order of love in my life?
Right.
You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. And then your neighbor is yourself. Okay, that's the order amoris. The supreme good's got to be loved first.
Right.
And that's a frightening, desperate business.
Yeah.
Especially for us fallen people. We're all fallen. And so we're all drawn to things of this world. What if you were to say, like, your country? Oh, I love my country. I'm a patriot. But do you love God more than your country? Unless you do, you're a mess, and you're going to be very dangerous. In fact, you'll be very dangerous. Even, I love my family more than God. You'll be very dangerous to yourself and to others, right? See, that's, talk about like Rilke and the angels being, that's the frightening, dangerous business that the Bible draws us into. But it's serious stuff.
What's like the demand, like Jesus identifying, unless you drink my blood or eat my blood. I mean, the turn away, when all the people went away and said, this is too hard of a truth. I mean, another evidence to me of the authenticity of the Catholic faith is that it doesn't just make you cozy. I mean, it does. Yes. Oftentimes, it actually challenges you, shakes you up. That's why it's people sometimes walk away from the faith because something they don't like about it. And Chesterton said, we need a church that's right where we're wrong, not a church that's right where we're right, more than anything else.
Unless you love me more than your mother and father, more than your very life, you're not worthy of me.
Yeah.
There it is. That's the same thing. That's the same thing. Unless you love me. I'm the summum bonum around here. Not even your mother and father. Not even your own life. So most of us sinners, like, when push comes to shove, I guess, I'm the summum bonum around here.
Yeah.
No. Unless you love me more than the people you love the most in the world, you're not worthy of me. I don't know any more serious spiritual exercise anywhere in the world, in the literature of religion, than that. And that's the biblical test, though, right?
Yeah. One last question, Bishop. You've been very generous with your time. Over 25 years. This is the 25th anniversary of Word on Fire.
Yeah.
And what an incredible quarter of a century it's been. Over 25 years, how has beauty figured into the ministry and the mission of Word on Fire? And does beauty, in fact, lead people to Christ?
Well, I don't think in the beginning of Word on Fire, it was so explicitly. I started preaching on the radio, and then we got a website that housed the sermons, and then I started recording some of my retreat talks, that sort of thing. I don't know if in the beginning, if you had said to me, now it's beauty,
Yeah.
I don't think I would have said that. But I think the turning point was the Catholicism series, that I took my inspiration from Kenneth Clark, and for Clark, I think beauty was the way in.
Who did the Civilization series?
Civilization, right. Yeah. That was the way in. And then once we made it, and we all kind of together saw, wow, that we really did capture much of the beauty of Catholicism. I began in an explicit way then to say, oh yeah, we got to continue on that route. And then I wanted it to be operating at a high level, intellectually and aesthetically. So I think it became much more conscious for me after the Catholicism series. But does it work? Yes. Because I just got so many testimonies of people that they were drawn in. I mean, that series had a lot to do with it, the pivotal players too. The beauty of our books.
Yeah.
Brandon Vaught and his wonderful publication team, the beauty of the Word on Fire Bible. We hear over and over and over and over again people brought in by it. So yes, I understood it theoretically through people like Balthazar, and then I saw it in action with the Word on Fire.
Wonderful. Bishop Robert Barron, priest, evangelist, and ardent proponent of leading with beauty. Thank you so much for this conversation. It's
welcome.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Todd. It was a joy for me.
That does it for us today. Thanks for joining us on the Word on Fire show. If you're interested in learning more about how Word on Fire can help you grow closer to Christ, become a better evangelist with and for others, and work for the common good, consider joining the Word on Fire Institute. Check us out at institute.wordonfire.org. That's institute.wordonfire.org. We'll see you next time. God bless and protect you.